Cool.
Training ground. You asked for it, you get it. Ryu and I will rip your photos into smithereens. Hold on to your headphones. Here comes the pain.
And pain, it is once again this month. Sorry, we were gonna do this earlier, but I've kind of been in Venezuela, and I almost got killed a couple of times. And on top of that, internet wasn't very, very good. So I apologize to everyone.
Which is worse, almost getting killed or not having any internet?
Not having any internet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct choice.
Of course, of course. So first one is Riku Exposures, and it's a hockey photo.
Yeah, this is fun, and it doesn't need to be here.
Yeah, I don't know why this is in here. Some they just don't. This doesn't have to be here either.
No, this is, I like this one because with the flag right in the middle,
Yeah.
this is good.
I mean,
I don't want to get into a situation where people are posting their good pictures in training ground. Like we used to have this, and it's annoying. Put them in the group. That's fine. People will see them. We'll see them. We'll talk about them if they're good enough. But this is for people who are either trying things that they're not good at yet, or trying a new concept, or kind of pushing the limits, or trying to get better. But when you're at this level, the place for these pictures is not training ground.
No, it's more like a Simon desk. And for Riku Exposure, it's quite, if you want to have us have a look at your portfolio, there is a service just for that, and that's called indecent exposure. It's definitely not called indecent exposure.
What?
It's called critical beatdown. Sorry.
Wow.
Indecent exposure. Maybe that'll be the next thing.
Yeah, we have to think of a good concept for that.
Critical beatdown is a paid service that we have on Big Lens Fast Shutter. And what we do is that Matt and I will take a look at your entire portfolio, entire meaning max 15 photos, and we will discuss it on video on YouTube. It will be probably about more or less an hour. And you can choose to do that, and you can choose to basically have it public, or you can choose to have it private. So private meaning the only person you'll be able to see it will be you. Public, it will be, well, for everyone to see. I kind of think you're at the level that training gun is really not going to help you unless you're trying something very, very new, or even assignment desk, because we just ask people to do certain thing per month, and I don't know if that's really going to be your thing. But if you're interested, go to biglensfastshutter.com, and yeah, we have that PayPal link over there. I think oh shit, maybe there actually is no PayPal link anymore. I'm gonna actually check because I think I should substitute that with the Patreon thing. So I'm gonna have a look, and hopefully by the time you are listening to this, there will be a section where you can basically, put your money down, which is $100 US. Okay. So moving right on after that, it's a good segue. Anthony Mazur, Makoe.
Yeah, this is not. I see what he was trying to do, and it's not. First of all, this picture reads terribly. So anybody who looks at this for the first time is going to be like, "What the hell am I looking at?" If you look a little bit deeper, I can see what he was going for with the coach kind of. I guess this is like a drill or something. So he's trying to mimic, what he wants the player to do. But it's a long way to go for this. Like, so what you want in a picture like this, where you're having, like, I call it an echo. So it's somebody who's in focus doing something, and then it's somebody who's out of focus doing the same exact thing. Like, you want it to be the same exact thing. And having the coach have his hands going up and the player with his hands going down kind of defeats the purpose of that. There's not really any good reason for it to be slanted like this. And I'm guessing that it is because he didn't want to cut off the coach's foot, but that's a lost cause anyway. Like it's not helping having that in there. It's just kind of like it's good that you saw this, and it's definitely like adding depth to your pictures is important. Like that's how you get from two players fighting over a soccer ball to a picture that has a foreground, a subject, and a background that all work together. Like this is an intermediate step to that, but you still have to get it right. Like it's good that you saw it, but it's not good enough to make it a good picture. This isn't. Try it. Like this is something that if you have access to a practice where they're doing something like this, then you need to move around and work on your timing so that you're composing in a way that you don't have to have it slanted and you don't have to have the coach cut off, but with all this extra space on the left-hand side of the frame. So again, in practice, when you're shooting a practice, you can pretty much be wherever you want. They're doing drills, so they're doing things over and over again. This is where you need to pay attention to what you're getting and adjust to it. Like this shouldn't be the culmination of it. This should be like, oh, I saw something cool and then I perfected it. Like this is the before picture. I want to see the after picture.
I think it's when you try to do something quite clever like this, you do have to kind of take a step back and ask yourself, okay, does this work? Like I know what I'm trying to convey. I know exactly what I want to convey. I want to do this. I can see it. But you have to ask yourself, can other person who's got no context can see what I'm trying to do? And I had no idea. I just thought like, oh, what a shitty picture. And that's not good. That's really not a response that I should have. If it's a good picture and if I don't really quite understand what you're trying to do, it's still okay because it's still a good picture. It's just like some deeper meaning to the particular, picture that you created. That's fine. But if I think it's a shitty picture, which I think this one is, and then B, it's obviously not executed properly, and on top of that, it's slanted. It's just a no-no. And that you have to be really thinking. It's mostly after you shot it, or if you're checking it on the LCD, like basically the back of your camera, you should ask yourself, really, I always keep on saying, this is a thinking person's, profession, sports photography. You have to really be thinking, asking yourself, does it make sense? Does it work? Because if it's a drill, you're going to be able to probably do it a couple more times. It's not like that, if this is the last person who's seen a drill, then it's going to be a bit of a problem. But if it's the fifth person who's doing it, you kind of got them in the right angle and everything. Okay, and you look at it and ask yourself, does it work? And I just don't think it doesn't really work unless you do something else next time you do this type of shot. But not an easy thing to do. I'm going to talk about this because someone asked me why I put this on our Facebook page. And I think what I do like is the fact that you're trying to do something different. And like, I think, I won't actually put up the other one because I think it was actually much more poorly than this one. I mean, I don't think this is the world's best photo of people, warming up or training or whatnot. But at least Anthony here is trying to do something a bit different. He's asking himself, okay, what can I do? I can actually get these, guys who are jumping, and I can actually make them kind of surround them with players, kind of frame them that way, and have a picture. Well, I think he have succeeded. That at least he thought about it that way, which I think is far more interesting than you guys actually giving us like perfectly shot action photo, because that's not really interesting. We've seen it. You've seen it millions of times. So what we want you to do is what Matt told you in the beginning, that we want to see you do something different. And in the process, if you fuck it up, well, so what? It doesn't matter. At least you try. And that's what will get you in a direction that you never thought would be possible. So yes, I think Anthony did a good job of us trying something new. And no, I don't think it's a great picture either. But I think it's actually, to me, it's executed much better than the one he actually did before.
Yeah, it's like he's pulling at a thread. right now, and it's good. Let's break this down real quick. I think there's like what's the word? There's like a fascination with people who are jumping. There's a fascination with mud flying, sweat, like the Sports Illustrated fixation on dreadlocks or something like that. Like there's these key things that people think automatically makes a picture interesting. And I could see somebody shooting this from head on, and these guys are jumping and they're real close to each other. And I could see somebody shooting real tight on them from the right-hand side. And oh yeah, there are guys that are jumping, and then you're just like, all right, well, what's interesting about this picture? They're a couple feet off the ground, but so what? But this is a picture. Like, he has actually thought about this, and he has the two guys in the foreground with their heads cut off as like a frame to it, and then you have these two guys in various states of jumping. The problem is the foul pole in the background and the guy who's standing in the background kind of screw it up. Mm. And the timing is a little bit off because you would want the guy in front to either be further along or, more towards the middle. But in general, the thinking is there. Like this didn't happen by accident. The picture that we just looked at didn't happen by accident. So you can kind of see how Anthony's thinking about, I'm using the things that are on the field in my picture, but they don't all have to be in the same plane. I don't have to isolate the action to just the guys who are jumping. This is important because this is what takes your pictures from being just super stock action, or even worse than that, just plain snapshots, into a picture that you made, with your head and with your gear, and took advantage of everything that was going on around you. Neither of these two pictures are good, but good things are going to come out of them if Anthony sticks with it, or if other people, try to do these kind of things. Like, you want that depth. You want trees in the background and out of focus players in the foreground, and then somebody doing something cool in the middle. He's done all of that. If you keep working on things like that, there will be a payoff at the end of it. I do promise you that.
Toe in Oshodi. But before we do that, I think Matt has something to tell you about Patreon.
Yeah, so we're on Patreon. The URL is patreon.com/ BLFS, Big Lens Fast Shutter. So we have a couple different packages starting at $5 a month, going up from there, and you get more things the more you give to us. We're doing this just because we've been doing it for 5 or 6 years. As we get busier in our shooting schedules, it's way more difficult for us to stop and do this kind of thing. It makes it easier when the time that we lose is made up for by your pledges. We have some people that have been very generous so far, and we've had people who have been not so generous so far. It's not a lot of money. We do a training ground, which is what you're watching right now, every month, and we do a podcast every month. There's a lot of content that we're putting out. A lot of people have used this to get better. Some people have used it to get jobs. More people have used it to get gigs. A lot of people have improved their portfolios. There is value here, and we hope that you can see that. We were just talking about it before we started recording. If you have gear to shoot sports, if you have money to get yourself to where you're shooting and time to edit and all things like that, then you have enough money to give us $5 a month. $60 a year, not that much money at all, and it at some point will make the difference between what level we can do the show at or not do the show at. So we need you to give to us. Again, not that much money, $5 a month, more if you can, but patreon.com/BLFS.
So now that's out of the way. But it's really not out of the way because it's something that we do feel strongly that you should consider if you have not pledged. And if you use our contents, you know, nothing in life is free, I'm afraid. Everything comes with a price. And I don't know, if you think you're actually okay with like not paying us, I guess that's how you're gonna live, you know? That kind of a person. Which I don't think it's a very, very good thing. I don't think your mother will be very proud of you if you do things like that. Okay.
Excellent guilt trip.
So Toin is well, I guess it's fisheye on the inside of the goal. I'm not really. I don't know, I have to say this. Like, I'm not really too crazy about fisheye in goals or behind a goal or whatever. It just doesn't really do anything. I've really not seen that many photos in my lifetime of football matches where the fisheye, I was like, wow, this is fantastic. Really isn't, because it's for most press photographers or people who work for agencies. This is basically a last resort. If you're shooting any sort of sport, if you're shooting for a particular spot, if you miss something, you basically have that as an insurance to get a photo that you couldn't get from your position, which is basically set in a place where you're gonna get a shot that your agency wants or whoever it is you actually work for want. If you're doing it as your thing, you're not doing this professionally at the moment, you're trying to basically figure out things like that, I would really rather practice holding the camera and taking pictures rather than having a machine basically blast out 1,000 pictures per minute and hopefully you get something. Because if I'm sure you're aware of it, that anything with like fisheye or wide lens, what you really do want is the subject for it to be as close as possible to the lens. So that makes a really, really good picture in most cases. And with the fisheye, I mean, it's very, very far, especially at the top. I'm like this, it's not a very good picture. I thought it would be even like the fact that I think there's that line and the shadow and everything. I think you could have done a much more interesting thing if you're basically sitting behind the goal and maybe you want to wait for like things to actually like happen in front of it. That which includes the line that's actually going through the basically the picture right now and the shadow. Great, but if you just like basically put a remote there and just gonna blast off, and okay. And I'm gonna say this one last thing. If you're basically using this, if you basically shot this with your hands, no, this is not a very, very good shot if you shot with your hands. It's probably even worse. I think going behind the goal is interesting, but everything's a bit too far, and goal is a goal is a goal, and it's not like it's a really interesting goal either. So that's my blurb on this one.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't go anywhere without my fisheye. I take it everywhere. I don't use it everywhere, but I always have it with me. And the thing about fisheyes, Ryu said this, but I'm going to expand on it a little bit. Whatever you're shooting has to be really close, within a couple feet. And when you have the goalie going out, I don't know, 7 feet or something like that, and he's the closest one there, the odds of you getting something really cool just go down and down and down, because things in a fisheye just don't look as cool when they're further away. What do I use a fisheye for? I put it on the end of a monopod and I shoot bucking horses coming out of a chute. They're 4 feet away, 3 feet away. Closer, if things go kind of haywire. I take it to hockey. It's my second, when I'm shooting through the glass, my second body always has the fisheye on it and stuff is happening inches away from it. This is when, it's like the fisheye puts you into it. The fisheye here puts you into the goal. Like, you have the feeling that you're standing into the goal, but it doesn't have any kind of feeling whatsoever that you're in the game. Because the game's happening 7 feet further out there, and all of the excitement, the action, any of that is just completely sucked out of it, because the fisheye just isn't designed to shoot things that are 7, 10, 15 feet away. It's just not how it works. These kind of shots, like I'm fine. I'm fine with experimenting like this, especially if it's a remote and you're out in the field shooting. I wouldn't stand behind the goal and just do this because you're missing pictures that you could be getting. And it's always good to have pictures that look different from all the other pictures in the portfolio. So even if it isn't like a perfect sports action picture, if there's a situation where there's a lot of cool things going on in the background, or there's like cool light or symmetry or something like that, it's fine. But this is boring in that the play itself is boring. It's too far away. And then, you know, this doesn't look like professional soccer to me.
No.
So the idea that you know, either set this up or stood there or whatever, but then didn't stand in the middle of the goal or even at an angle that was more interesting than this. Like, we say this all the time, like you get caught in no man's land. Either you want to be right in the middle where the line is the middle of the picture and you have equal parts of the goal on both sides, or you want to be in the corner so that the line is, you know, like an interesting diagonal or something like that. But being off center, but only slightly off center, just makes it distracting. So this isn't good, and this is low percentage. Like, there's just not that much. Like, you could have somebody slashing in from the side and coming really close to the goal or something like that, and you could get that. But that's really, you know, 1 in 500 or something like that. Most of what you get is going to be somebody shooting from 10 yards out or 10 feet out or whatever, and it's just too far and not interesting enough.
No. Okay. No. I understand what you want to do here. You know, it's one of those things. I do understand, but it just doesn't work. Shooting boots, I have done it because I do a lot of, you know, commercial stuff for companies, and they have want me to shoot boots, and I just try to make sure that I try to get an interesting shot of boots, and there's nothing interesting about that. And I think it isn't. You know, photography is a subjective thing. It's a matter of taste, and I understand there's like that black thing going on the right, which I just saw, which means that if I'm not looking for it, you won't see it. So it kind of goes back to the first picture we saw, and like, not you. If you want to tell something to us, it has to be blindly obvious that what you're trying to sell is, or to tell us is. And if I have to, like, if I'm concentrating on the boots and I just realize there's like that black pellets, you know, rubber pellets like flying on the right side, it should be a lot more. There should be like this explosive amount of black pellets I can actually really see, and that will dominate the picture. Because what's interesting, I'm assuming, is the black pellet. And if I don't see it immediately, then I think you just basically failed in this picture. And it should be, you know.
Yeah, we talk about this sometimes, like, and again, we talked about it in the first picture, like, you're asking people to do a lot of work to read the picture for a little bit of payoff. It has to be like, when you have feet in the picture wearing orange and yellow shoes, the attention is going there, and you could look at this picture and skim right by it and never see the little rubber pellets coming up. I'm not saying that this would have been a good picture if there were way more pellets coming up, or if it was easier to see them, or if the background was lighter or something like that. But you would be more on your way to getting something interesting if that was more dramatic and you were balancing the shoes on the one side of the frame with the pellets on the other side of the frame. But as it is, there's not enough pellets. They're not set off enough against the background to balance what's going on with the feet on the other side. This, you know, this is closer to something than the other one is, but again, you have to, sometimes you do have to be obvious with what you're doing. There's definitely a place for subtlety, but the subtlety needs to have more of a payoff than this. It's like, okay, well, if you finally see that they're rubber pellets, they're okay, well, they're rubber pellets. That's not enough of a payoff to get people to really spend a whole lot of time looking at the picture.
On we go. It's Reed Noy Rider. I like this. I wish there wasn't that other skis on the right side. If it was just like those two skis on this side, I like the depth. I was even thinking like even better like if like I think the shadow of the trees makes it so interesting, you know?
Right, except for that he's the guy who's on the bottom is in the shadow.
Mm.
Like I don't mind the two sets of skis. I think it's actually kind of cool that the pair on the left are separate and the pair on the right are together like that. I think that's actually kind of cool. I just think that it would be visually, it would be better if the skier who's actually on the slope wasn't getting sucked into a shadow.
Mm.
But it's a good idea. I don't mind the picture.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the shit. I can't. It's like I've seen, you know, people who aren't professionals jump better than this, and it's not a very cool jump.
This is what we were talking about with one of Anthony's pictures. It's like, okay, well, he's up in the air, and there's not enough. Like, yes, it's pretty in the background, but you expect that when you're taking skiing pictures, so it's kind of like a given.
Mm.
So you would want this to be more dramatic, like either you being closer to him to make it look like he's jumping higher, him doing something that looks more athletic. Like it really, look at this picture, and if you like say you isolated it and you just photoshopped the ground like way closer to where he is, this doesn't look athletic at all. It looks like some guy doing a squat or something like that. Like his arms aren't doing anything interesting and his knees are like slightly bent. He's just up in the air. Well, being up in the air or whatever, we see that in every picture.
Mm.
What you want is like a real tight tuck and looking like he's way higher up in the air, or frame it better so that the trees are closer to him. That you get some better light in there. Like it just ends up looking like the background is a generic postcard and you were going for the postcard shot with a couple of skiers in between. It's like it's not dramatic enough, and you're using the background and the trees and whatever as a crutch to kind of like telegraph that the picture is interesting. But when somebody actually looks at this picture and spends more than a couple seconds into it, they're like, all right, well, yeah, mountains, trees, okay, but it's a skiing picture and the skiers aren't doing anything. It just doesn't look athletic, so it's way less interesting than it should have been.
Okay, Matt Cohen. I think Andrew asks, does the garbage can bother you? And the answer is
no. No, it doesn't. What bothers me is it's just this is a snapshot that he turned black and white.
Mm.
There are garbage cans in locker rooms, and so I'm looking at this, and it's like, okay, well, there's a white walls in the background, and the floor is real dark, and he's wearing a white jersey. There were possibilities here to do something cool. What I would have liked to have seen is something wider. Like if you were really worried about the trash can and this was a horizontal that you cut into a vertical, I would rather see the horizontal. I would rather see more of the trash can than have a crop like this. I would also rather not see the guy looking at you with that kind of blank look on his face. Like if he's going to be looking at you, I want to see intensity, or I want to see him deep in thought, not looking at you or having his hands in his head or something like that. Like if you're going for a casual, what's the word? Environmental portrait or something like that, then this is super boring and the trash can bothers me. What you should be doing is trying to make a sports picture. A lot of good sports pictures have happened in locker rooms. But this isn't one of them. Like, this should be way wider than this, or he should be doing something visually more interesting than sitting there looking at the camera.
Just quickly, for me, the garbage can really bothers me. It shouldn't. I mean, if you have time to basically have him sit there and do this thing, I would just move the stupid garbage can out, and that it should be evident by the time you're basically setting things up and say, "Hey, can you sit over there because I want to take a picture of you?" Then we just move the damn thing. Just move it. And you should be more aware of what's happening around, this whole situation. Instead, I'm just gonna move it. It takes 2 seconds to do. So that really, thinking about it.
If you pose this guy and you didn't notice the garbage can until it was all over, that is a huge problem.
Yeah.
If this was like, you were just walking through the locker room, or you just had a second or something like that and you saw it or whatever, then that's a little bit different. But it doesn't make it any better of a picture. It just means you need to pay more attention if you didn't notice it until after you made it. But you can move things like that. Like, it's not against, I don't know, maybe super, like, you're not going to get in trouble for doing something like that. Like, you're not, maybe if you wanted to, like, enter it into a world press contest or something like that, and somebody said, oh, he moved the garbage can, you might get in trouble or something. But you're not getting fired from a job or outcast from the photojournalism industry or whatever for moving a garbage can out of your way.
No one's going to say anything, because it's not like, no one's going to, no. Master picture, yeah, like Matt said, I think you just convert it into black and white to, like, make into a moody thing, but it just doesn't really convey anything at all. I think you can do a better job than this. Alvaro, I'm going to do that. It's Alvaro Campo, and it is hockey. Matt Cohen, it's hockey season.
It is. I've been shooting a lot of hockey.
Indeed.
I don't know. It really bothers me that the one stick is out of the frame like that. Probably nothing to be done about it, but there plays behind the ice all the time. So I don't know if this is a remote or if you were in the stands or in the rafters or something like that. But this is the kind of thing where it's not uncommon. Like, we're not asking you to shoot a picture of the glass breaking or something like that, like, where it's going to happen once every 5 seasons or something like that, where you're shooting a play behind the net with the net in the top of the frame. So if you're going to try to make a picture like this, then make a picture. Be patient. Devote half a game. It's a minor league, AHL or something, Western Hockey League. I don't know, but there's time to get a picture like this where they are doing something more interesting, or they're more in the frame, or there's a bunch of players going after the puck and some of them are going horizontal or something like that. Like, nobody said you needed to post this picture of this minute of this game. So that opens it up to, why didn't you make a better version of this? And so that's my question. It's like, why are we looking at this when presumably you had as much time as you want to make a picture, and as many games as you want to make a picture like this? I don't imagine it's super hard to get into a Vancouver Giants game.
I like this picture. I like the colors, and I like the lines. I don't know, but
but that stuff is still there in a good picture. Like,
yeah, I know, but like, I just kind of think that I was hoping there'll be something a bit more interesting going on with the skaters in the back, like in the back of the
right. Well, this is the same as the skiing picture. It's, yes, there are pretty trees and mountains and a blue sky. That's that was there no matter who was there with the camera. That was going to be the background of those pictures. So yeah, you did a good job bringing up the blue of the crease or whatever and the red of the goal line and the goalpost. That's fine, good, but there still needs to be something athletic happening, and this just doesn't look like it. It's just you know, when you're shooting from above, what you want is not the tops of people's heads, and you want to see them laying out, diving for a puck with their stick completely extended or something like that. That's the benefit of shooting from up top, is the dramatic dives, and maybe if people like looked up towards the rafters or whatever, and you get their face. But what you don't want is just two guys from up top, and really all you can see is like the tops of their helmets or whatever. Like that's not you're not realizing the actual benefit of shooting from up top. Like you need something interesting to be happening, and to get that, all you need to do is spend a little bit more time. Like once you can do this, you can get an interesting picture. Something is going to happen, but you have to be patient enough to sit there until it does.
Yeah. That. See, I'm really not a big proponent of doing black and white. I think it really has to, the photo itself needs to be able to stand on its own when it's color. And if you add the whole thing of black and white, it should add to it. Your entire photo should not be based on the fact that it's black and white.
It feels like they're just trying to scam us. Like we're not going to notice that it's a boring picture, and they knew it was a boring picture, but we'll just convert it to black and white, and maybe they won't notice or something. We're definitely going to notice.
Yeah. I even actually told another photographer recently, because I've been told by a magazine that this guy is shooting stuff right now, and he wants to like if I can actually give him tips on things. And I saw his work, and it's like, why are you turning things into black and white? I don't really get it. Like, you shouldn't be like that. You should be able to shoot in color, and your work should be able to then carry carry it in color first, and then you can turn to whatever you want to turn to, pink or blue or yellow, whatever. You can change it to that, add it, but don't make it that black and white. Right? We know this. Everyone knows it. The black and white. It
seems to me that it makes this picture even worse, because you lose him into the background. Like his face and his jersey get lost in the fans in the background. Like it just makes it worse. Like if it was in color, he would actually be standing out more. Like it's not going to be a good picture regardless, but it just seems like this makes it worse.
Yeah. So it's a no-no. No. I'm just thinking, what else could he have done at this moment if he can't get on the pitch? There's nothing much you can do, really. I think the action, the celebration is happening quite far, and if you're at the place where you are right now, this is as much as you can do, unless they come towards you and do celebration stuff. But if you're allowed to enter onto the pitch after they've won the match, I would just bum rush them, just go, with wide angle, and just run towards them and get all the shots.
Yeah, if this was at the actual end of the game, that's exactly what should have happened. This is what happens when you try to shoot something that's too far away, given the gear that you have and given the background or whatever. The people standing under the umbrella, that's not helping at all.
No.
So what lens? 70, but
I don't shooting with white f4.5 in this setting. I don't understand.
Right, and okay. So this is a problem. Go back to the exit real quick. Look at what you're doing. So you're making the camera go into high ISO. 2500 is certainly usable on modern camera. I don't think it's like the restricting factor here. but because you stopped it down to 4.5, you're losing shutter speed, which robs you of the ability to stop a lot of action, and you're pushing it up into the high ISO, where if you drop the ISO a little bit and you raised the shutter speed and opened up the aperture, you would be getting more of stop motion on the action, and you would be more blurring, certainly more blurring out of the background. That's not going to fix this picture because you were too far away for 200. That's physics. Like, there's no arguing that. You're too far away. Even if you were at 2.8, you would still be able to make out the people who were under the umbrella. But it would just be better if you had used settings that were more appropriate for what's going on here.
No.
And shooting at 4, you don't shoot sports at 4.5 unless you're trying to do something very specific. If having two things in the frame, like if you're shooting baseball and you need the batter and the catcher to be in focus or whatever, then okay, stop it down a little bit. But other than that, shooting sports is about focusing on and communicating that what's important by focusing. And when everything's in focus, then nothing's in focus. So don't shoot at 4.5 unless there's a real good reason for it.
I understand what you're trying to do here. Like, I think you're trying to create the lines with the rafters and the stuff actually on the rafters plus the lights. I just kind of think the action itself is not very interesting. There has to be something quite interesting happening for the whole thing to work. It always will be the case that you just cannot rely on one thing. Like, if one thing in this entire image is really, 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 really interesting, I think that will make up basically 80% of the picture. But if that one thing that is really interesting in this picture is basically the lights and the basically geometrical shape that's actually taking shape on this whole thing is not that strong, then whatever is actually like happening, which is basically the sports in this case, has to be really, really interesting. Like, for instance, like the girl the girl basically is tumbling towards you, then that's a bit more interesting. But the fact that everything is happening so far, and on top of that, nothing really interesting is happening, it just doesn't work.
Yeah. So there's a couple things. When you're shooting like this, you can scroll. What's the EXIF on this one?
3.5, 18.3.
Right, but it's at 6400. So yes, you can do that. You can shoot at 6400 and get a usable picture, but that doesn't mean you should. And what's going on here is that the thing that people don't understand is, like, they keep, oh, the new body can do this, the D5 can shoot in almost pitch blackness or whatever. All that means is that the grain and, to a certain extent, the fidelity of the color is going to be the same at high ISO that it would be at low ISO. That's what we're talking about when you say it can shoot in low light, because the light is still what makes the picture. And when you're shooting in a dark gym like this, the dynamic range of everything is working against you. There's more light reflecting off the shiny floor than there is on the people who are on the court. And so there's very little you can do. Like, in something like this, if the important thing is the shape of the lights in the rafters and the reflection off of the ground, then you can underexpose it to make that more prominent and to make everything else less prominent. But the problem is, then it's just going to be a dark room because there's not enough light that's hitting the things that are ostensibly the subject of the picture. And that's where strobing comes in. If there's not enough light, there's not enough light. And you can buy a great camera that's going to let you shoot in low light. But if there's not enough light on the things that you need it, you're just going to be screwed. If the background is white, if you're shooting in a gym and the background is white, but the light is coming from the top, and there's more light on the background than there is on your subject, there's nothing that your camera can do to compensate for that. Period. Like, you're stuck with the light that's reflecting off of what you're shooting and going into the camera. At some point in time, if you want quality pictures, you're gonna have to strobe it. That's just all there is to it. Like, you have to put the light where you want and then adjust the camera after that. Is it worth it all the time? No, definitely not worth it all the time. But if your options are more light on the floor in the background than on the subject, then the choice really becomes, do I really, really need to shoot this? And if I do, is it worth it for me to set up lights? And there's not a whole lot of good pictures that are going to happen when you're in this kind of situation. There's not enough light in here to do what you need to do versus the amount of light that's bouncing off the floor and the background.
I mean, in this case, the main subject is the dude who's going, onto the ice, and the dude's head should be in focus. Period. Really. If you're basically getting someone from the back, from this angle, just kind of having like just a bit of a shoulder action and maybe the hand action, there has to be something really interesting going on at that focus point. Otherwise, it doesn't really do it. It doesn't really I feel like you should have just gone from the straight back, so you can see his name or whatever, and they can always basically that there should be something that really is dominant in the picture, and it has to actually have that feeling of, I'm gonna go onto the ice now to play hockey, and it doesn't really feel that way. It just kind of feels like, okay, I kind of wanted to do that, but I only got his left shoulder and kind of, at the end of, or the beginning of, if you want to, see it that way, off the glove, and like, that's it. And
yeah, this is like timid. Like, when I see this picture, what I think of is that Kevin is being too timid. If you have the access where you can get to the point where the end of your camera is, for all intents and purposes, touching the guy's jersey or whatever, then you need to take advantage of that. And what I want to see is faces. I want to see the emotion of it. Like, what you're doing is you're asking people to assume the emotion because you can't really see any faces. I want to see that. And nobody said that you have to shoot from behind. You could, there's a guy up there, he might be the coach or the ref or something. I think he has a helmet on, but he has a darker jersey. Or no, that's a stick. Never mind.
Yeah.
You could, there's enough, listen, this isn't high enough level. What is this, juniors? There's not, this isn't a high enough level that you can't snake your way through there. And listen, if somebody tells you can't do that, then just don't do it anymore. But it's not like, you're not going to get drawn and quartered for getting more in the middle of it than giving us this like fly on the wall kind of thing. Like, there's a place for the fly on the wall, but that has to be, the picture itself has to be more interesting. If all you're doing is shooting people standing around, then you need to show exactly what's going on when they're standing around. This is just people waiting in line. That's all.
God, no. I mean, I understand that you kind of want to do like the whole thing that's happening on ice and what's happening like outside of ice, but it's not like, these dudes at the right are going crazy or doing something really interesting. It's not the case, So it looks like a really
it's, and it's empty. If you're shooting in an empty arena, then you need to figure out either how to make it look like it's not empty or to use the emptiness. And what you're doing is trying to show a celebration, and then there's like one guy in the front, a couple of guys in the back, cheering. This is like there's not enough impact to it. It's just it just looks sad.
If these guys, for instance, are like playing chess and that's you know they're having a really good time doing it, or they're basically sleeping or something, that would be great. That would be really, really good. That's the kind of stuff that you want. You kind of want to like show basically the contrast between what's happening on the inside and the outside, not trying to basically match it when there's only like 4 people watching the entire game. I like the fact that I can see her face. That's it. That's really it.
Yeah, this is I don't know. I mean, this could be if the school paper was doing a story about this girl, like that's fine. They could definitely use this. But you want a better version of something like this. You want something that's more balanced and lined up better. This should be a vertical. You should have cut a vertical out of this. I think. I don't think the empty space on really either side is doing you any favors. And if the part of the frame that was in focus was a bigger percentage of it, I think it would have a little bit more impact. You know, I don't dislike it. It's just not a great example of this kind of picture. And what I mean by that is, yes, she's partially obscured by the player in front, and the player in front is out of focus and she's in focus, but that's not enough on its own. Like you still need to compose the picture in a way that makes it really interesting. And this just looks accidental, really.
No, I mean, there's nothing wrong with accident, but the fact that like it's not really interesting is.
No, it looks accidental. Like somebody can be accidental and be really good. This looks like, oh yeah, cool. Didn't mean to do this, but you know, it's her face is in focus. Like that's not enough. Like it still needs to be composed. Like accidents are fine, but it still needs to be
interesting.
You don't want it to look accidental. You want it to look like that's what you're trying to do.
No, I just don't think that like it's just not an interesting picture, and as a whole, like I just don't. I think the person in the front doesn't really do anything, and just is not. It's fine. I wish the 2 photographers. I would just Photoshop them. It's really annoying because I think it works very well. I like the hands and everything, and the people celebrating, and it kind of frames the whole thing. But those 2 photographers just don't do it for me.
Well, you don't need to Photoshop them; you just crop them out.
Yeah, but it kind of takes out all the nice hands that are in there.
No, it doesn't. No.
Yeah, it does, because there's less hands then after that. I just think that it's a bit of a shame that
this could be a square or vertical without those photographers. Absolutely no problem.
Instagram photo. Sorry, Tom. I just think it's really unfortunate. I just don't like it. I think if you want to kind of take it in a way that like, yeah, it should be interesting to do photographers there, like they kind of just destroy it for me.
Yeah, well, we can agree to disagree on that, but what I'm going to say is that those 2 photographers are not doing it right. And if we could go training ground on those 2, so what are they doing wrong? Well, the one looks like he has a moderately wide lens on the left. Why is he so far away? It's ridiculous. You need to be in there. You need to get in there. And then the guy on the right, like, don't shoot a celebration with a 70-200. Come on. Like, don't do that. This is just, the pictures from that are going to look so stupid. It's basically just going to be like headshots of people with expressions on their faces when the whole team is doing like Ring Around the Rosie, and the one guy has a wide lens on but isn't close enough, and the other guy is just half-assing it with the 70-200, and that is ridiculous. Those 2 guys should never be able to shoot again.
Yeah, it's one of those things that like you see it, like you rarely see it this way. It's usually like people just jamming right, into the where they're celebrating. Because it's far more interesting that you kind of feel like you're in the picture when you have a very wide angle lens and you have all these people celebrating, So that kind of sucks. Good. I love it. It's great. It works brilliantly. It's a very, very good example. I really think that if you're doing that kind of perspective of like, things that are in front, and things that are in the back, and basically using the whole of the arm to do it. So it shouldn't be here. It shouldn't be here either. So to everyone that's actually out there, this is not a place for you to send your photos that are good. And if you're going to tell us like, oh, but I don't know if it's good or not, I don't know. I think you should probably know at this point what's good and what's not good. And honestly, it basically like robs us of time to look at shittier pictures, which we should be doing anyway, because that's where we basically get our sad pill every month. To basically look at your horrible pictures and just tell how crappy they are. If you put good pictures, we're just gonna go straight through and just move on to the next one.
Yeah, it's also a good time to go to patreon.com/BLFS and make a pledge.
Yeah. And the reason why is that, I just came back from Venezuela, like I said before, and I'm jet lagged, slightly tired. Yeah, make it worth my while. Like I'm tired. You should like say, hey, I'm giving you $1 billion a month. You shouldn't be tired. They'd say, you're absolutely like, I've got a billion, reasons for not to be tired. So no, I'm not asking for billions, but hey, I think you can basically, if you can spend money on something, just give us a couple our way. That gives me, gives us more reasons. Like say, hey, we're very happy. Look at your shitty pictures. So, Simon West, it's great.
Yep, doesn't need to be here at all.
Don't. It's not very interesting. I mean, it shouldn't be here because I think it's one of those pictures that you say, hey, this is the team won, and the guy's very happy, and that's it. Not much you can do because he's basically pointing at the camera and he's basically pulling for you. So, Tom, I think.
What was this the one where there was a question about the was it the autofocus mode or something?
I didn't read that one. You did. There wasn't Tom, was it, who actually had that question?
I don't know. I thought that's what they were talking about.
Well, we can ask him about it if he wants us to talk about it in the next podcast.
Okay.
Yeah. Great. Great. It's fine. I love it. I love these kind of pictures. It's great. You got the moment that when everyone else is basically concentrating on something else, you just saw like, oh, what's interesting, and you saw like that basically that whole contrast between what's going on the ice and what's happening off, and you have like quite pensive moment of the hockey player doing this, and it's fine. Fine.
The coach though.
Yeah, the guy in the front. I'm assuming he's not walking backwards. He's going forward. So I would like to know personally, whether or not the coach basically went through by him and went on to the other side. It would have been much, much better.
Yeah.
This has been a Big Lens Fast Shutter presentation, and my name is Rick Vocal, and the other person who was talking a bit before. We run a podcast and a website called biglensfastshutter.com. This is training ground where you basically submit a photo on our Flickr group page for us to have a look at things. That's one thing that we work with. Two things: the podcast we have, and the other thing is the training ground that you're watching right now. We also have a thing called
indecent exposure.
Indecent exposure is something we just came up with. I have no idea what's going to happen. Maybe we'll find out something we can actually do with that. Critical Beatdown is a portfolio review thing that you can do for $100. And then obviously for all the people who are using this, our website and our programming and our contents to become a better sports photographer, if you think we deserve some of your money, please go to patreon.com/BLFS, and that is Patreon, patreon.com BLFS. So that ends our programming. Have a great evening or morning or whatever. You had some horrible pictures. Well, yeah, some really, really bad ones. That's fine, we're here for that. So, yeah, make sure you give us more crappy pictures next month and we'll talk about it. Right? Thank you very much.